All right. Before we get started today, as always, I want to thank all the listeners, everyone who's liked, subscribed, shared the podcast with people. If you haven't done that yet and you're a listener, please spread the word. Tell friends, repost messages, copy the link to the show and send it out to people. Keep this show going and growing. Big extra double duty shout out to the Patreon subscribers. And those are people who will help financially support the show. And if you are interested in checking out the Patreon, go to patreon.com/bigtruth. And there's 4 different levels there of patronage, and they all come with their own exclusive benefits and things like that. Now, if you live in Massachusetts, and you happen to be in the unfortunate situation where you find yourself in a motorcycle-related accident, you need to check out the law offices of Jeffrey Glassman. He's an injury lawyer that specializes in motorcycle injury law, right? Now, this is just for Massachusetts people, so, if you're not from Massachusetts, keep listening because this is going to be over in like 20 seconds, but... I don't know if you knew this, but even if something happened to you a couple years ago, you have up to 3 years to kind of pursue this. So if some motherfucker cut you off or broadsided you or rear-ended you you're at a stoplight, you're at a red light, and someone comes up behind because they're texting and not paying attention, shovel a bagel in their mouth, reading the newspaper, whatever the hell they're doing, playing on their phone, texting, whatever, and they smash into you, let them know what's up. You got to get Glassman in this situation. So what you do, give him a call over at, and this is the easiest number ever to remember, 617-777-7777. So all you got to remember is 617, all sevens, 617-777-7777. Or visit jeffreysglassman.com. So it's they'll do a free and confidential consultation. Even if you already got a lawyer and you feel like they ain't doing a good job, hit up Glassman. You got to get Glassman. All right. Now, say you're sitting in your apartment or your house or your garage or your shop or your work, your cubicle, your garage, your tattoo shop, whatever it is, and you notice a hole in the wall. There's a gaping hole that you need to fill with artwork. There's just like a big blank little area. Or say you went full idiot and tried to fight inanimate objects and got mad and punched a hole in the wall, and you don't feel like, going through all the work of like patching up the hole and then repainting and whatnot. You need to check out Tattoo Flash Collective because they are a supplier and purveyor of artwork. Tattoo-inspired artwork. Obviously, they sell Tattoo Flash. So if you're a tattoo shop, you want to get some Tattoo Flash. Tattoo Flash also makes good art. But they also have posters and prints and books. And these posters and prints are in all kinds of sizes. So check them out, tattooflashcollective.com. Or Instagram at Tattoo Flash Collective, right? That's all you got to do. If you are in the New England area, and you have a motorcycle that you need to do some customization to, or some service or some repair or just basic ass service, or you need some audio, or you want to beef it up a little bit, get some speed work done, some motor work done, you need to check out my shop. It's Chop Ahead, which is www.chopahead.com if you're outside the area. We're located in 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts. Full service brick and mortar motorcycle shop. So if you need parts, you need swag, you give us a call, or you come in, you want a helmet. We're one of the only Simpson dealers in like New England, I think. I mean, definitely one of the only ones in Massachusetts. You can come in and try some Simpson helmets on, or whatever else. We carry Biltwell, we carry Daytona for helmets, Bell, all kinds of stuff. So come on in. You can walk in, you can feel things, touch things. Ask us questions about parts. Don't take a guess. Don't do the Amazon buying gray fucking, sorry, gray market kind of bootlegs and whatnot. Give us a call. Support a local independent brick and mortar shop. Now, whether you need an oil change or a full custom motorcycle built, we do it all. So check us out. If you're not in New England, you can go on chopahead.com. Order some swag or parts. Give us a call. We're set up with every distributor, so we can drop ship a set of pipes to you. So if you live in Texas, I can have them drop ship from the Texas warehouse. So you might have that stuff the next day. All right. So just give us a call. Let us know what you need. We'll tell you if it's in stock and if we can get it. All right. But, as long as it's in stock and available, we can get pretty much whatever you need. And if it's not in stock, that's beyond our control. You need to contact the manufacturer and yell at them. All right, but 508-995-6764, www.chopahead.com, spelt in the most masshole of ways, which is CHOPPAHEAD.com. Obviously, if you want more information about the podcast, check out bigtruthpodcast.com. And just a friendly reminder, the store link is active, so you can get some nice summer apparel and swag. Go to bigtruthpodcast.com, hit on the store link, and it'll bring you over to our merch fulfillment site. And there's all kinds of funny things there. You'll notice the banner in the background on the podcast today if you're going to look at it live. So yeah, that's the other thing. Don't forget. I know a lot of you just listen to podcasts like me, and you do it on audio, whether it's on Spotify or iTunes or Apple or whatever, or Apple Podcasts, or Android or whatever. But if you want to see the video component, you can go to YouTube and subscribe to the Big Truth Podcast YouTube channel. I think it's just at the Big Truth Podcast on YouTube. Subscribe there. We're trying to get membership up because I only started doing videos a couple episodes ago. So, but you can check out the video there. Now, full disclaimer on the episode today, we were having some technical glitches. I think it's because we were talking about weird shit, and we're in the Bridgewater Triangle. So, supernatural forces were trying to mess with us. I'm just kidding. There was just a glitch. We were getting glitches. We were getting some delays and some glitches, and my guest dropped off, but a couple times. But we made it through, and it's a very interesting episode. So keep it locked and listen right now.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
All right. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast. And today I'm with my man, Harry, who is out in Brockton, Mass, and is part of the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Investigators. And if you that have listened, for those that have been listening to the show, you've heard about the Bridgewater Triangle kind of a few times with like Chris Pittman and other podcast guests. We'll dive a little more further into it tonight with Harry here. And I want to formally thank you for coming on today, Harry. How you doing, man?
Good, very good.
We're getting a little weird delay, everybody. So if just deal with it. Hopefully that'll work itself out as we go along. But just for the listeners out there, just kind of hold in and we'll see what we can do with that. But Harry, why don't you give a little bit of background about who you are and how you got into investigating, the paranormal and specifically the Bridgewater Triangle. And then we'll talk a little bit about your group after that. But let's just hear a little bit about you and your journey into this.
Well, it all started when I was 14 years old, and this was back in 1996. Me and my mother got divorced from my father. We had to move in with my grandmother, and she lived on the west side of Brockton, which, by the way, Brockton is right inside the Bridgewater Triangle. I met this kid named Troy. He was a childhood friend of mine, and we used to ride our bikes all around the old neighborhood. One particular area where we used to love to ride our bikes was behind Brockton High School. There used to be old quad trails over there. They're all filled in now. But one day we were riding our bikes up and down the old trails, and we got off our bikes. We started chit-chatting, and I noticed Troy. He looks up in the sky, and he goes, "Oh, shit." And he runs, and he hides into the tall grass. And I'm thinking, what is it that he sees? All of a sudden, it sounded like a car driving on all four flat tires. The wind started to pick up. The tree branches were blowing like crazy. I could feel the winds. The tall grass and the marsh was blowing like crazy. I turned around, and from Belmont Street, there was this huge, huge bird flying towards me. And it was probably about 3 stories up. And I was thinking to myself, oh God, this bird is massive. I hope he doesn't become warm and scoop me up and carry me on his way, because this bird was large enough to do that. It was flying closer towards me, and it looked old. It had patches of fur. It looked like, it was like brown, worn out suede. Um, it had like knotted up fur. It had cobwebs in the fur. It had twigs caught in the fur. So you could tell this bird was, crashing through the trees. That this bird was massive. As it flew over me, the fur that it had went everywhere. Picture like a cattail that you pick up in the marsh and you rip it open, all the cotton, the fur that goes everywhere. That's what it was like. My friend Troy, he came out of hiding and he's like, "Harry, did you see the size of that bird?" And I'm trying to be the calm, cool, collective one. I'm just like, yeah, I saw it. I knew we weren't in any danger, even though, I was kind of relieved that it.
1 second, it's going to start over. So you had dropped out for a second, and then you came back. So sorry about that, but to everyone,
Okay.
that the listeners. But I heard you. The last thing I kind of heard you say was the bird was like. So this is a thunderbird you're probably talking about, right? Just to kind of clarify that to get through. But you said there was a huge bird,
Yes,
and you could tell that it had been crashing through the trees by the debris and whatnot that was on the bird, and then your buddy said, "Hey, did you see the size of that bird?" And that's when you kind of dropped out right after that. So if you want to pick up from there.
so he was telling me, he goes, "Did you see the size of that bird?" And I'm trying to be the calm, cool, collective one. So I'm just like, yeah, I saw it. I knew it wasn't going to bother us, even though I was kind of relieved that it flew away.
Yeah.
It flew south going towards the Hockomock Swamp. And the term Hockomock means place first well. It was a native burial ground. I never heard of the Hockomock Swamp or the Bridgewater Triangle when I was 14 years old. So I went home. I told my mother, and of course she thought, because I was a small child, that any bird would look humongous in the sky. So me and my friend, we kind of brushed it off. We thought maybe it was just like a rare species of a condor that we just never studied before in school. We actually forgot about it. He ended up moving from the old neighborhood. I did as well. I forgot about it for many, many years. In 2007 now, and I was a skeptic. I was a skeptic person with the paranormal. But in 2007, my buddies were telling me about this abandoned tuberculosis hospital in the town of Hanson.
Yep.
And they were saying that they read online that it was haunted. So we drove up there. We snuck in because there was no trespassing. The police didn't want you there. And while we were there, we heard what sounded like kids laughing and crying at the same time. And children did pass away in this hospital. So we were walking around aimlessly, and I said, let's just get out of here. There's nothing really going on. And my buddy Seneca, who's one of the investigators, he said, "Let's walk around one more time. Something is telling me to walk around one more time." So I'm like, all right. So we walked around again. We get to the main entrance, and he's up ahead, and he stops, and he goes, "Did you see that? Look." And I looked over, and there was this white silhouette of like a figure floating towards the main entrance. So my buddy looks at me and he goes, "Oh shit, it's a ghost." And we ran. And I don't even think we were really scared. We were just excited that we saw a ghost. I know I was, because I was kind of skeptic. So I was amped up that I saw something. We actually got back to the car. We debriefed about it. And for the longest time, that was the go-to place on a Friday night when we were bored. So 2 years later, I was telling a friend of mine, Portia, about, this ghostly sighting. And she said, "Harry, that's because you live in the Bridgewater Triangle." Now, she was under the impression that Hanson's had the triangle, even though it's not. And I said to her, what did you say? What is this Bridgewater Triangle? And she said, "Harry, you lived out here how long? I just moved to the state, and already I know what the Bridgewater Triangle is. You don't?" I said, "No, what is it?" And she started telling me about this, triangular region that's a hot spot for paranormal activity. And she was saying that people have seen UFOs, Bigfoots. And right away, I'm just like, oh, okay, sure, Portia, whatever, Bigfoots, okay. And she goes, no, Harry, it's true. People have seen Thunderbirds right in Brockton. The second she said that, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What did you say, Portia? Did you just say Thunderbird? And she goes, yeah, Harry, people have seen big, humongous birds flying around in the sky. And I said, oh my God, I'm remembering when I saw that when I was a kid. So she started to research into this region. She started, having me read it on her desktop. I actually went home and was doing some research on it. And I always now had an interest in the Bridgewater Triangle. As a matter of fact, in 2010, we hooked up this group called the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Society. The group kind of disbanded. And, just throughout the years, we would go out there, not really in the hot spots. But we actually one time tried to look for the Hockomock Swamp. We were under the impression it was just, a trail in the woods in West Bridgewater, and we couldn't find it. I actually stopped into the West Bridgewater police station to ask about it, and they said, you're inside it right now. This was all swamp at one time. And I said, well, isn't there some trails to walk, like a nature walk? And he looked at me and he said, nope, sorry about that. Now there's many trails, but they didn't want outsiders coming and possibly getting lost in the swamp. So he told me, no, sorry, nothing out here. So I got back in the car, told my friends, oh, well, that's a bummer. A girl named Valerie told me about a section in West Bridgewater. We actually went out there. She showed me around, and we were walking down the trail in the Hockomock, and we heard what sounded like native drums beating. And I'm like, oh my God, this is freaky. Let's go check it out. And she goes, no, Harry, let's just go back to the car. She was scared. And like I said, throughout the years, we just poking around, walking around, going to some creepy looking cemeteries. We were in a cemetery in Brockton, and it was called Cavalry Cemetery. And me and my buddy Seneca, we were walking around, and I look over and I see this black shadow running towards me. And immediately I thought it was a person. Maybe they were out there looking around the cemetery. They thought they seen a ghost. So it stops and it ducks down behind the tombstone. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe he thought we were ghosts. So I kind of walked up to the tombstone to say to him, are you all right? And I looked over and he was gone. And I looked at my buddy and I said, did you just see what I saw? And he goes, yeah, I did. That was creepy. So it was amping me up more to really start investigating this triangle. So it was during COVID. We were bored. And I said, you know what? Why don't I get some equipment? We'll go out there. We'll start a YouTube channel. We'll start, investigating this triangle. So it wasn't until 2020 we were really boots to the ground now investigating all the hot spots out there.
Yeah. So you had a few experiences, a Thunderbird, which is very, a rare experience. Just going back to that 1 second before we even move on, if you had to kind of just guess, and I know you saw it when you were a kid, but if you had to guess at the wingspan of that bird when you saw it, what would be your closest guess on something like that?
Each wingspan was probably larger than a 78 Lincoln Town Car. Picture a raised ranch house.
Yeah.
It was probably wider than that.
That's insanity. So
it was huge. And
there's
been many people that had.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. We have that delay, so we'll work with that, but I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There's been many people that had Thunderbird sightings in the triangle, but they're described what looks like to be the size of a turkey vulture.
Yeah.
I know one time we were driving on Bay Road and we saw this big bird in right on the road, and it extended its wings. And my friend was like, holy shit, look at that bird. And he flew up into Wheaton's farm and he goes, Harry, quick, grab your camera. There's your Thunderbird. And I'm just like, no, Paul, that's not it. The one I saw was much bigger. Yeah.
What sounded interesting about the one you saw when you were a kid was that it sounded like it was like moving wind, like it sounded like a plane or something coming in. It wasn't like a bird in flight. Like this thing was like messing with the environment, like smashing trees and like making like almost like, I don't know what the word for it would be, but something that big swooping in. You're hearing that, like, and you don't ever hear that with just a bird, even a large bird of prey. That's a whole different situation, especially if it's got wings like the size of a 70s Lincoln Continental. You know what I mean? That's it's like 10 feet each wing almost.
What was weird about it? Yeah, what was weird about the Thunderbird? It was very in sync. It never changed its altitude, its course, nothing. It stayed on one course. It actually made eye contact with me. It was very in sync, but it looked like it didn't belong there, let's just say.
Yeah. And so then, later on, you saw some kind of ghost or apparition in the abandoned place, and some kind of shadow figure coming at you, and you heard drums in the forest. And you're not the first person I've talked to who's talked about hearing like kind of native style drums off like in the distance when they're in the forest or in the swamp. So that's definitely a common kind of occurrence. During COVID I was hiking the Freetown Forest every day, and I'm lucky or unlucky in that I've never had any weird experience. You just find weird stuff like that is man-made, like people drawing pentagrams and all that stuff all over the place and whatnot. But yeah, so then you have a series of events, and then it sparked you into more getting into actively investigating. So how did you go about doing that? Like, what kind of research did you do to find out even kind of like what to do for investigating, and like what equipment to use and things like that? Like how did you kind of jump into that with your friends?
I asked a lot of old school investigators the best equipment to get. And you'll see on our YouTube channel, we use a lot of props like REM pods, laser scopes, laser grids, stuff like that. Those are all props. They can be accurate based on the right time, right circumstance. But the real deal paranormal investigating tools are night vision cameras, thermal cameras, EMF meters, not K2 meters because they're inaccurate, and digital recorders. Those are all tools that were focused in a different field that you adapt into the field of paranormal investigations. Like, for example, the EMF meter. It's made for people to measure the EMFs underneath the high tension lines, but you adapt that into the field of paranormal investigations because it said that an entity will give off an electromagnetic field. Another good example, the thermal camera. Us HVAC guys would use that back in the day to record, cold spots in people's homes, and that would help us to decide if, they had a draft before we just go jack up their floor to run, new ductwork to add in a register, or we would use it in the summertime and record hot spots, and that would help us to decide if the customer needs, a larger AC unit with more BTUs. Same thing with like a spirit box. That's a channel sweeper, but we adapt it into this field to use as a spirit box because it sweeps through AM and FM both at the same time, but in different direction to pick up below 0 dB. So all the tools that are my go-to tools are, instruments that are in a different field that you adapt into this field. So
yeah.
Upon talking to like old school investigators, they advised me that these are the best types of equipment to use.
Okay. And so how did you go about investigating it, and what kind of investigations do you guys do? Are you doing it more just in the forest or abandoned places? Or are you going into people's homes if they call you for an investigation? Like what kind of things are you guys investigating, and what are you looking for? Are you just, and when I say that, I'm trying to ask you big questions because we have that delay so I can let you kind of run with it, but feel free. And then, but, I know there's so many different phenomena in the triangle. Like, there's the Thunderbirds, there's, Bigfoots or Puckwudgies or, there's all kinds of stuff there. So tell me a little bit more about what and spirits and things like that. But what are you guys actively investigating, and like, where are you primarily investigating?
We started off small, just inside the Bridgewater Triangle. I was in contact with some people, so they, by word of mouth, they told me about the hot spots. As of probably 2 years ago, we kind of expanded outside the triangle. We went as far as Winchendon, and then we went to Penhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania. So we stick with the Bridgewater Triangle. It's our home base, but we like to extend outside the triangle because we actually believe the triangle is much bigger than what Lauren Coleman actually coined it to be in 1983. I've noticed that the triangle probably goes all the way up as far as Salem,
Okay.
all the way down to Rhode Island, all the way across to Cape Cod. And we do investigate people's homes. A lot of people have came to us and said, my house is haunted. Can you come down, do an investigation? I've been asked this before. Why don't we ever try to get rid of the spirits that are in the house? And they never ask us to do that. It's usually they love the haunting that's in their house. They want the spirit to be there. They just want answers to who it is or why it's there. I never been asked really to get rid of it.
Or just confirmation.
But yeah,
that
we've done investigations inside the triangle. What was that?
Oh, I said, or just they want to know why it's there or who it is, or just confirmation that there is something there so they don't feel crazy maybe.
Yes. Yeah. So we've done, investigations in the triangle. We are expanding outside. We have I actually love to do private investigations for people who are in their homes because there's a little bit more truth to their hauntings versus you go into these other haunted locations, these paid events like Peter Oliver House. Not saying it's not haunted, but there's been so many other investigators there that said, well, I came up with this, or I came up with that. Now you're just chasing with their evidence. And that really stems away from the focus of the main hauntings that go on at these locations. So I love to do private investigations for people in their homes, and it's free of charge. We don't charge as long as we can get some great footage and put it on YouTube, and usually they're excited for that.
Sure. And so are you guys primarily focusing on spirit type stuff, or do you go after or investigate any like cryptid sightings?
We have tried to look for the Sasquatch out where Joseph DeAndroid had his encounter. Not really any luck. A lot of that stuff happened in the 70s.
Yeah.
A lot of it now, you don't hear any more really reports on these cryptids. I noticed. To me, I think because there's newer homes being built inside the Hockomock Swamp that this positive energy is kind of sandwiching over the negative energy. So you don't really hear of these cryptids anymore. Through my research, I've noticed that my Thunderbird sighting in 1996 was the last sighting ever.
Okay.
So we mainly focus just on, ghostly encounters, black shadows, stuff like that.
Okay. What's some of the and I know you've done like some documentary work and outside of just like your regular videos and whatnot. If you care to talk about some of the more interesting cases or some of the most compelling cases, that you've encountered when you've been out there doing your thing, I'm sure people would love to hear about that. That's the interesting stuff right there.
We actually are working on a documentary right now. It's called, and he changed the name of it. He just posted it to on my Facebook. Cursed Echoes, I think it was called. It was a working title, Paranormal New England. It's by Total Disclosure Productions, a film by Tyler Roberts, and it's a 3-part documentary. It's on Dudley Road, Salem. The third part was on the Bridgewater Triangle, and I helped co-direct it. I also appeared in it. He wanted to make it a little bit more unique than my straight to YouTube documentary or the original 2013 documentary, because the original documentary in 2013 was based on, this is what the triangle is, here are the hot spots, this is what goes on. Some people loved it, some people hated it. They wanted to see investigations. I know the producer Aaron, and I'll probably chop his last name, Codex. He actually stated to a girl that it was kind of a relief not to do investigations. It stemmed away from the typical, like Ghost Adventures show. So when I made my YouTube documentary, we did just that. We focused on what goes on in the triangle, newer hotspots. We also provided, investigation clips inside the triangle, hence the name Inside the Bridgewater Triangle. So Tyler wanted to do his documentary a little bit more different, make it a little bit more unique. One of the places that we went to in the triangle for his documentary was the Josiah Keefe house, which actually, this house wasn't available during the original documentary. It's the oldest house in Easton, and it was built in the year 1717, before the town of Easton was actually inhabited. The story behind it is Reverend James Keefe. He was the first reverend in the town of Bridgewater, and it was said that he actually housed King Philip's son and wife and spared them from being beheaded during King Philip's War. Some say that he, shipped them off into slavery. The natives say no, he sent them to Nova Scotia to be free. But his son, Josiah Keefe, now, they were herding cattle back and forth from Bridgewater to Easton. So Josiah Keefe built a corn crib in Easton. He lived in there while he was building the Josiah Keefe house, finally done in 1717. His son, Josiah Keefe Jr., he was the lieutenant in the militia for the Revolutionary War. George Washington was helping train the militia at Wheaton's Farm, right next to the Josiah Keefe house on Bay Road. Bay Road had a lot of taverns at the time where the soldiers would stay at. A lot of soldiers stayed at the Josiah Keefe house. George Washington himself was inside the Josiah Keefe house. They went to go answer the Lexington alarm. They marched right up Bay Road. Unfortunately, they were late. When Josiah Keefe came back, he owed a lot of debt. He had to sell off large chunks of land, a lot of mills he's had to sell to the Oliver Ames family. He freed the last slave woman in Massachusetts that was living in that house. The town wasn't very happy about that. And then he ended up taking his own life. He shot himself in the head in the bedroom. Now, there's been many other family members who have lived there. The Williams family lived there in the 1800s. Abigail Williams, she was either 16 or 17 years old. She died of, I think, tuberculosis. And the last family that lived there was the DeWares, and Melanie DeWare, Scott DeWare. They both died of cancer a couple years ago. So my buddy Justin from New York actually moved into that house. And I was talking to him for a good year, and I didn't even know he was living out here in Massachusetts. He said that he was the first person to look at this house, this historical home, and he was the last person. He said nobody wanted to buy it because a lot of things you can't change to the property if it's a historical home. Yep. So he moved in, and he said that he's been experiencing all kinds of paranormal activity, footsteps, doors opening and closing, disembodied voices. He said that he brought in a woman into the home, and he was explaining about all the hauntings that go on. And as he was explaining it, the chandelier, the light bulb burst. The woman said that she felt her hair get pulled. We think it's Abigail Williams. She's a prankster. So he called us to investigate. We investigated that home 2 times, and we picked up EVPs. So definitely he is hearing disembodied voices. One of the EVPs was when my friend, he was opening one of the drawers. You can hear an EVP, a voice saying, "Close the drawer." We were trying to make contact with Josiah Keefe, and the EMF meter kept going off. We asked, can you confirm it's you? The EMF meter went off again. We have a spirit box. One of the investigators was saying, "Who am I speaking with?" And a male's voice came out of the spirit box that said, "Josiah." And that's such a rare, old-fashioned name that you don't hear anymore.
Oh, yeah.
We also heard footsteps. The first time we were there, the hat went flying off the couch. Unfortunately, we weren't recording. We were debriefing. We all looked at each other like, did you just see what I saw? So I quickly turned on the camera. The second time we were there, I put the hat on the couch and I said, can you pull the prank? Can you knock the hat off the couch? And we picked up an EVP of someone saying, funny. While we were investigating, we heard a lot of noise in the corn crib. When we went outside, the noise stopped. When we were in the den, Justin said, I hear commotion going on in the living room. I went to go check it out. Something knocked the umbrella off the hutch. I think they were trying to create a distraction. They didn't want me going into the living room. Why, I don't know. But it's definitely an historical home. It's definitely very creepy. So when we were filming the documentary, we stayed there. We did an investigation on the house for the documentary. I actually got the chance to spend a couple minutes alone in the house. Let's just say something really creepy happens. You'll have to watch the documentary to find out, but it was definitely worth the experience for me. Definitely.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of ducks were in a row on that, with the stuff you caught digitally, whether it was from like the spirit box or EVPs and stuff. What's your take on, I know some people, there's different things like that, with EVPs, what's your take on what that actually is? Do you think that's them communicating or talking, or do you think, what do you, what's your take on what that is?
Like I said, I'm a skeptic person. Even sometimes when I get a lot of good evidence, a week later, I might say to myself, well, what if it's this? What if it's that?
Yeah.
But I always think the EVPs that we catch, I always say to myself, how do you explain that though? And that's what makes me not a skeptic. I don't know. I think it's definitely a voice from the beyond, but I can't explain it. It's it's a mystery.
Did you see anything there? I mean, other than like the hat flying and stuff, but did you see any like form or apparition or anything in the house, or did anyone report seeing that that's lived there?
We didn't see anything visual, no, but we did get some great stuff in the documentary.
Sure.
It's definitely worth checking out. It will be available in October, actually.
Okay. And I'll put a link to your YouTube page and everything so people can check out your past work in the show notes so they don't have to remember it. But we'll get all that information from you later where people can find all your stuff, and it'll be in the show notes as well. Any other kind of investigations that you've done that have stood out or yielded like any kind of crazy results or crazy experiences for you or your team?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Were breaking up. You froze.
Okay, sorry. I was saying, we lost you again. Hold on, let me pause. Okay, no, what I was asking before we had the glitch was any other kind of standout or investigations that you've done that have yielded some like crazy or unexplainable or remarkable kind of results or occurrences for you and your team as you've been doing this for a few years now, like any other standout ones for you?
Yeah, one particular time, it wasn't really like a bizarre experience. I didn't really experience it, but another team member did. It was at Anawan Rock, and Anawan Rock is where Chief Anawan was captured by Benjamin Church. Everyone thinks that the war, King Philip's War, was over once King Philip was shot for his heart. They were still gathering natives and shipping them into slavery. August 28th actually marked the official end to King Philip's War back in 1676 when Chief Anawan was captured. Now, Anawan Rock has a lot of hauntings. They say, there's been reports of phantom fires, Native Americans dancing in the woods, which, by the way, we did hear heavy footsteps when we were there. And we smelled this weird, musky smell, almost a skunk, but not. And a lot of people that smell this, they say there's a follow-up to a Sasquatch sighting. However, when we were there, it was me, Paul, and his girlfriend, Rochelle. And I said to Paul, let's have Rochelle sit on the bench with the digital recorder right next to her. maybe these spirits will feel comfortable talking to a female. We'll walk away. So we walked away. We came back, and I said to Rochelle, did you experience anything? Anything happen out of the ordinary? And she goes, no. During the rest of the night, she was acting very strange, like she was out of it. When I went home and I reviewed the digital recording, you hear a voice, a deep voice, very soft though, saying, chose me. And then you hear Rochelle saying, hi, honey. So Rochelle acknowledged something was there. She obviously heard this being talk to her. But when I asked her if anything out of the ordinary happened, she said, no. And she was acting very strange. We never saw her again after that. She disappeared. We don't even know what happened to her.
So not only did she not come on another investigation, she just dropped off you just had no contact with her again after that?
Can you repeat that? You broke up again.
Oh, I said, so not only did she not come on another investigation with you, she just kind of dropped off the face of the earth? Like, so you guys just had no more communication with her?
Right.
Wild.
Don't know what happened to her.
She never said.
This was going back probably to 2020.
Yeah, that's wild. She never said anything to you, huh? Going out in the forest or in the swamp, I know one thing that people have talked about experiencing out in there were, and this is getting outside of cryptids or apparitions, but have you heard about or experienced any kind of portal type activity while you've been out and about in the triangle or outside areas? Or is that something you're involved in or not?
No, I never got to experience it, but I've talked to somebody that claims that they were driving on Route 24 and they usually take the right lane after they pass under the West Street Bridge to prepare to turn onto the 106 exit. He said he was driving. He went under the bridge. He looked back. The bridge was gone. There was no 106 exit. And he instantly found himself in Bridgewater going by the 104 exit, which is like, I think 4 miles down the highway. So definitely, vortexes or portals that are lingering inside the triangle where people have claimed to time slip.
Yeah, it's interesting. Cool. I know we're getting a lot of glitches and stuff, so I think this has wet the whistle for a lot of people, and we'll get them going over to your YouTube page and checking things out. Anything else before we wrap up today? Any other, interesting or standout stories or experiences?
I probably have a ton of them. I don't know how much time you have, though, but we have a lot of them. You can check out a lot of my videos on the YouTube page, the Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Investigators. Unfortunately, a lot of them are set to private. We're experiencing some problems with a scammer that's hitting videos with content ID claiming the music to be, his material. I'm actually discussing it with a YouTube team member right now. We're working on getting that fixed, but the videos will be public once again if they want to head over there and subscribe and check them out. Okay.
Any other social media where people could find information about you?
If they want to join, we have a big Facebook group page called the Bridgewater Triangle. You'll see the cover photo. It has a red triangle with a ghost in the middle of it.
Okay.
It's like the ghost face. It almost looks like the one from Scream.
Sure. Cool. I'll put those in the show notes, so if someone's driving right now, they don't have to remember that. But you remember when you park and you're looking to get a little freaked out later, to check out that YouTube page and that Facebook group. Harry, I want to thank you for coming on today. I'm going to shut the recorder off, but I'm not going to hang up. So just stay on for one more second.